Good morning. We are continuing working with our shapes, with our perimeters and circumferences and area. Yesterday we did the circumference of that circle with a circumference equaling 2 times pi times r. Today we are doing the area of a circle. So just like with our circumference, we're going to be using that lovely number of pi. So we will be working with pi some more. So today we are doing PO70. I can calculate the area of a circle. So remember that the area is the number of square units needed to cover a figure. So it's what we need to cover the whole inside. So when we talked about our rectangles, we talked about the area covering everything on the inside of our garden. How much soil would we need to cover that whole inside of the garden? With our circles, I like to think of it, we work so much with the number pi. I think of pies in general that we get to eat. So when I think of the area of a circle, I think of all the pie that's inside the pie plate. That is the area. Everything covering the inside of the pie plate. So remember that our circle is the set of all points in a plane that are the same distance which we call the radius, from the center. Remember that our diameter equals the distance across the whole circle, or 2 times r. So our radius goes from the middle to the outside. The diameter goes all the way across. So we have one radius here, one radius here. So our diameter are 2 radii added together. So we know how to find that circumference. We do that radius times 2, or the diameter, times pi. For our area, this is important. When I write formulas on the board, make sure you write them on your paper. Our area of a circle is pi times r squared. Because that area is the square units needed to cover, we have to square our r. So what does it mean when we square something, James? Times it by itself. So if our radius is 5, we're going to do 5 times 5 squared, times pi. So we're going to calculate our circumference of each circle, and we are going to round to the nearest 100. So that kind of goofed some of us up as we were working with the circumference. So I'm going to remind us some rules for rounding. This will help working with our circles. It'll also help prepare us for that math test. So remember our place values. We have the tens, the ones, we have our decimal. Then we go right to our tenths place, then the hundredths place, then the thousandths place. There is no 1th place. So our 100th place is our 2nd place, decimal place. In order to round to the 100th, we need to look at that 1,000th. If that thousandths is 5 or higher, we round our 100th up 1. And remember, if that is a 9, you're rounding it up to 10. Okay, it doesn't go down, so it wouldn't become 1, 0, 0. We don't go down in our numbers, we want to go up. So we're going up, we go from 9 up to 10. If it was this, and I want to round to my 100th place, what would I round to? Matthew? So what would my final answer be? And I'm rounding to the 100th, so 2.00. Very good, because I'm rounding that 9 up to 10. So that means I have to round this 9 up to 10, and I carry that one over here, so that's how we get the 2. Just a refresher on decimals. Melina? I'm rounding to the 100th, so this is my 100th place. So when you round to the 100th, you stop at the 100th. We don't put anything after it. James?
So for the circumference,
This is area.
oh yeah, for area,
Mm-hmm.
if you have a full diameter, is it just for like B? Is it just 12 times pi?
Let's look at that. We're going to work it out. That is a good question. When we were doing circumference, it was 2 times pi times r. Is r squared the same thing as 2r?
No.
So when we were doing the circumference, we could just take the diameter because that is 2 times r. R squared is different. So let's see how that works. Let's do our first one. Let's do A. So we know it's pi r squared. So we have pi times our r of 5, and we're going to square it. What's 5 squared? 25. So that's pi times 25. So if we multiply it with the pi symbol on our calculator, we get 78.54. And if we do it as 3.14 times that 5 squared, that 25, 3.14 times 25 is 78.50. It would both be a correct answer, right? One is with the pi symbol, one is doing 3.14, slightly different numbers, so we get a slightly different answer. But you do have to round to that 100th place correctly. So whichever way you use, with the pi or with the 3.14. So James's question is, when we got to B, well, it's giving us a diameter. So what do we do? What do you think, Gigi? Oh, we need to find that radius. We can't convert 2r to diameter. It doesn't work because we need r squared this time. So we need to find half of our diameter would be our radius. So what is our radius for this one? 6, because we have 6 plus 6 equals 12. So our radius is 6. So then we do pi times 6 squared, or 3.14 times 6 squared. What is 6 squared? 36. So 36 times the pi symbol. Anybody know what it gives me? Okay, hold on one second. Aiden?
113.04.
You did 3.14. Okay, let's do the pi symbol first. Pi symbol would be 113.10. And if we do the 3.14, we get 113.04. So if we did it the way that James was thinking, if we just did it as, how was it that you said it?
It's just going to be 12 times pi.
Yeah, so James was thinking 12 times pi. What does that give us? Instead of doing r squared, James times it by the 2 like we were doing yesterday. If we did 12 times pi, we get 37.70. Very different answer. Okay, so it has to be different than how we worked it out yesterday. That would be our circumference. And we don't want the circumference, we want the area. So we have to square the radius because that's what area is. Area is squaring it. That's how we find the inside. And it makes sense that there would be a whole lot more to cover the inside than to just cover that outside. Luciana, what was your question?
I remember the A
Mm-hmm.
for 78.50. Did you want us to add the 0?
Yep, we talked about that. We're rounding to the 100th place, so that means we need to have a digit in the 100th. So if you get 78.5, that's only going to the 10th. So then you throw that 0 on, so you're going out to the 100th.
You get it wrong if you don't add the 0.
I haven't decided yet. I want you to get in the habit of doing correct math, so that way when we get into pre-algebra next year, we're in the habit of doing things the correct way. Riziki.
Has somebody ever had to take Math6?
That would be a question for Mr. Schultz. I've taught it for 2 years now. Last year and this year, I just started teaching 6th grade. So I'm not sure the history of it all. So that would be a question for him. And I know he always works with individual students on their own personal needs. Having to retake a class means you just haven't mastered it yet. And we want you to master it. We don't want to move you on to a class that you're not ready for. So if you're struggling in Math 6 and you go up to pre-algebra, you're really going to struggle because you have all those concepts that you haven't mastered. So we just want to make sure that we're not putting you in a position where you're going to fail again, right? Sometimes I know that people have had to do summer school to, like, there are certain concepts that they haven't mastered, and they do summer school with Mr. Schultz to make sure that they have those concepts mastered. So I know there have been cases of that. All right, back to the area of the circle. Any questions on the area of the circle? And then at the very bottom, we just have some review of some other geometry ideas we have: the perimeter, the area of a square or rectangle, the area of a triangle, the circumference. So you're going to have to write those formulas down. So look back at those objectives, make sure you know those formulas. For my friends at home, we hope you are well, and we hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful day.